and went to the forest named Panchaprastha. He took with him in that chariot 2 explosive arrows. The chariot itself situated on 2 wheels and 1 revolving axle. On the chariot were 3 flags, 1 rein, 1 chariot driver, 1 sitting place, 2 poles to which the harness was fixed, 5 weapons, and 7 coverings. The chariot moved in 5 different styles, and 5 obstacles lay before it. All the decorations of the chariot were made of gold. Wow. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. These 3 verses, let's see what it says. These 3 verses, which covering verses 1 to 3, these 3 verses explain how the material body of the living entity is under the control of the 3 qualities of the external energy: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The body itself is the chariot, and the living entity is the owner of the body, as explained in Bhagavad Gita 2.13, Dehinosmin yata dehe. The owner of the body is called the Dehi, and he is situated within this body, specifically within the heart. The living entity is driven by 1 chariot driver. The chariot itself is made of 3 gunas, 3 qualities of material nature. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1861, Yantra Rudrani Mayaya. The word yantra means carriage. The body is given by material nature, and the driver of the body is Paramatma, the Supersoul. The living entity is seated within the chariot. This is the actual position. The living entity is always being influenced by the 3 qualities: Satya, goodness; Rajas, passion; and Tamas, ignorance. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.13. Tribir Gunamayer Bhavai. The living entity is bewildered by the 3 qualities of material nature. These 3 qualities are described in this verse as 3 flags. By a flag, one can come to know who the owner of the chariot is. Similarly, by the influence of the 3 qualities of material nature, one can easily know the direction in which the chariot is moving. In other words, one who has eyes to see can understand how the body is being driven, influenced by the particular type of quality of material nature. In these 3 verses, the activity of the living entity is described to prove how the body becomes influenced by the quality of ignorance, even when a person wants to be religious. Narada Muni wanted to prove to King Prachinabari, yes, that the king was being influenced by the tamo guna, the quality of ignorance, even though the king was supposed to be very religious. According to Karma Kandya, the process of fruitive activities, a person performs various sacrifices directed by the Vedas. And in all those sacrifices, animal killing or experimenting on the life of animals to test the power of the Vedic mantras is enjoined. In other words, is permitted. Animal killing is certainly conducted under the influence of the mode of ignorance. Even though one may be religiously inclined, animal sacrifice is recommended in the Shastras, not only in the Vedas, but even in the modern scriptures of other sects. These animal sacrifices are recommended in the name of religion, but actually Animal sacrifice is meant for persons in the mode of ignorance. When such people kill animals, they can at least do so in the name of religion. However, when the religious system is transcendental, like the Vaishnava religion, there is no place for animal sacrifice. Oh, I'm glad they said that. Such a transcendental religious system is recommended by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 18.66. Sarvadharmam prityaja mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarvabhampebhyo mokshishyami ma sucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Because King Parshinabarisa was engaged in performing various sacrifices in which animals were killed, Narada Muni pointed out that such sacrifices are influenced by the mode of ignorance. From the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.2, it is said, Projita Kaitavotra, all kinds of religious systems that are involved in cheating are completely kicked out of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavad Dharma, the religion dealing with one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, animal sacrifice is not recommended. In the performance of Sankirtan Yajna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There is no recommendation for animal sacrifices. Well, I'm glad to hear that because our wonderful Radhika is not going to be eaten. In these three verses, King Puranjana, going to the forest to kill animals, is symbolic of the living entities being driven by the mode of ignorance, and thus engaging in different activities for sense gratification. The material body itself indicates that the living entity is already influenced by the three modes of material nature, and that he is driven to enjoy material resources. When the body is influenced by the mode of ignorance, its infection becomes very acute. Oh, I like that, infection. And when the body is influenced by the mode of goodness, the materialistic infection becomes purified. Okay, so, however, when the body is influenced by the mode of goodness, the materialistic infection becomes purified. The ritualistic ceremonies recommended in religious systems are certainly on the platform of goodness, but because within the material world, even the mode of goodness is sometimes polluted by other qualities, namely passion and ignorance, a man in goodness is sometimes driven by the influence of ignorance. It is herein described that King Puranjana once went to the forest to kill animals. This means that he, the living entity, came under the influence of the mode of ignorance. The forest in which King Puranjana engaged in hunting was called Pancha Prastha. The word Pancha means five, and this indicates the objects of the five senses. Body has five working senses, namely the hands, legs, tongue, the rectum, and the genitals. By taking full advantage of these working senses, the body enjoys material life. The chariot is driven by five horses, which represent the five sense organs. And one second. Namely, the eyes, ears, nose, skin, and tongue. These senses are very easily attracted by the sense objects. Consequently, the horses are described as moving swiftly. On the chariot, King Puranjana kept two explosive weapons. which may be compared to ahankara or false ego. This false ego is typified by two attitudes. I am this body, which is ahanta, and everything is my bodily relation in my bodily relationships belongs to me, mamanta. So that's called the false ego. I am this body, and everything in my bodily relationships belongs to me. That is, I would say, 98% of all people in the world are subjected to this false ego, typified by two attitudes. I am this body, ahanta, and everything in my bodily relationships belongs to me, a mamata. The two wheels of the chariot may be compared to two moving facilities, namely sinful life and religious life. The chariot is decorated with three flags, which represent the three modes of material nature. The five kinds of obstacles or uneven roads represent the five kinds of air passing within the body. These are the prana, apana, udana, samana, and vyana. The body itself is covered by seven coverings, namely skin, muscle, fat, blood, marrow, bone, and semen. The living entity is covered by three subtle material elements and five gross material elements. These are actually obstacles placed before the living entity on the path of liberation from material bondage. So very interesting. The word Rashmi, rope, in this verse indicates the mind. The word Nida is also significant, for Nida indicates the nest where a bird takes rest. In this case, Nida is the heart, where the living entity is situated. The living entity sits in one place only. The causes of his bondage are two, namely lamentation and illusion. In material existence, the living entity simply hankers to get something he can never get. Wow, that's a very profound statement. Therefore, he is in illusion. As a result of being in this illusory situation, the living entity is always lamenting. This lamentation and illusion are described herein as Dvi Kubara, the two posts of bondage. Wow. The living entity carries out various desires through five different processes, which indicate the working of the five working senses. The golden ornaments and dress indicate that the living entity is influenced by the quality of Raja Guna, or passion. One who has a good deal of money or riches, especially driven by the mode of passion. So one who has a good deal of money or riches is especially driven by the mode of passion. Being influenced by the mode of passion, one desires so many things for enjoyment in this material world. The mind is always making plans with 10 commanders to enjoy the material world. The forest named Panchaprastha, where the king went to hunt, is the forest of the five sense objects from form, taste, sound, smell, and touch. Thus, in these three verses, Narada Muni described the position of the material body and the engagement of the living entity within it. Okay, very, very important statements. Text number 4. It was almost impossible for King Puranjana to give up the company of his queen, even for a moment. Nonetheless, on that day, being very much inspired by the desire to hunt, he took up his bow and arrow with great pride and went to the forest, not caring for his wife. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One form of hunting is known as women hunting. A conditioned soul is never satisfied with one wife. Those whose senses are very much uncontrolled especially try to hunt for many women. King Puranjana's abandoning the company of his religiously married wife is representative of the conditioned soul's attempt to hunt for many women for sense gratification. Wherever a king goes, he is supposed to be accompanied by his queen. But when the king or conditioned soul becomes greatly overpowered by the desire for sense gratification, he does not care for religious principles. Instead, with great pride, he accepts the bow and arrow of attachment and hatred. Our consciousness is always working in two ways, the right way and the wrong way. When one becomes too proud of his position, influenced by the mode of passion, he gives up the right path and accepts the wrong one. Kshatriya kings are sometimes advised to go to the forest to hunt ferocious animals just to learn how to kill. But such forays, meaning such a foray is you go somewhere to get something.
Sudden attack,
Yeah.
raid.
Okay. Such forays are never meant for sense gratification. Killing animals to eat their flesh is forbidden for human beings. Wow. We should tell Elon Musk this and all his friends. Text number 5. At that time, King Puranjan was very much influenced by demoniac propensities. Because of this, his heart became very hard and merciless. And with sharp arrows, he killed many innocent animals in the forest, taking no consideration. Wow, that's terrible. To be so mean. Purport, when a man becomes too proud of his material position, he tries to enjoy his senses in an unrestricted way, being influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. He is thus described as asuric or demoniac. When people are demoniac in spirit, they are not merciful toward the poor animals. Consequently, they maintain various animal slaughterhouses. This is technically called suna or himsa, which means the killing of living beings. In Kali Yuga, due to the increase of the modes of passion and ignorance, excuse me, almost all men are asuric or demoniac. Therefore, they are very much fond of eating flesh. And for this end, they maintain various kinds of animal slaughterhouses. In this age of Kali, the propensity for mercy is almost nil. Consequently, there is always fighting and wars between men and nations. Oh, well, that's true. We see that every day in the news. Men do not understand that because they unrestrictedly kill so many animals, they also must be slaughtered like animals in big wars. That should be understood by all uh, the men that go out on hunting. Hunters are actually demons. This is very much evident in the Western countries. In the West, slaughterhouses are maintained without restriction. And therefore, every fifth or 10th year, there is a big war in which countless people are slaughtered, even more cruelly than the animals. That's true. Even more cruelly than the animals. Sometimes during wars, soldiers keep their enemies in concentration camps and kill them in very cruel ways. These are reactions brought about by the unrestricted animal killing in the slaughterhouse and by hunters in the forest. Proud, demoniac persons do not know the law of nature or the laws of God. Consequently, they unrestrictedly kill poor animals, not caring for them at all. In the Krishna consciousness movement, animal killing is completely prohibited. One is not accepted as a bona fide student in this movement unless he promises to follow the four regulative principles: no animal killing, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. This Krishna consciousness movement is the only means by which the sinful activities of men in this Kali Yuga can be counteracted. Haribol, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. If a king is too attracted to eating flesh, he may, according to directions of the revealed scriptures on sacrificial performances, go to the forest and kill some animals that are recommended for killing. One is not allowed to kill animals unnecessarily or without restrictions. The Vedas regulate animal killing to stop the extravagance of foolish men influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The question may be raised why a living being should be restricted in sense gratification. If a king, to learn how to kill, may go to the forest and kill animals, why should a living entity who has been given senses not be allowed unrestricted sense gratification? Wow. So, in other words, it's saying, look, if kings are allowed to go out and kill animals, why aren't just normal people allowed to have sense gratification? At the present moment, this argument is put forward even by so-called swamis and yogis who publicly say that because we have senses, we must satisfy them by sense gratification. These foolish swamis, yogis, however, do not know the injunctions of the Shastras. Indeed, sometimes these rascals come out to defy the Shastras. They even publicly announce that there should be no more Shastras, no more books. Well, this is Satguru, he said, I don't read any books. I don't read Shastras. Why read old books when I'm present in front of you? Just come to me, they say, and I shall touch you and you will become immediately spiritually advanced. Because demoniac people want to be cheated, so many cheaters are present to cheat them. At the present moment, in this age of Kali, the entire human society, has become an assembly of cheaters and cheated. For this reason, the Vedic scriptures have given us the proper directions for sense gratification. Everyone is inclined in this age to eat meat and fish, drink liquor, and indulge in sex life. But according to Vedic injunctions, sex is allowed only in marriage. Meat eating is allowed only when the animal is killed and offered before the goddess Kali. And intoxication is allowed only in a restricted way. In this verse, the word niyam yate indicates that all these things, namely animal killing, intoxication, sex, should be regulated. Well, in Krishna consciousness, these things, these animal killing, intoxication, sex, are strictly forbidden. But for lower class people, they may engage in these things if they're regulated. In this verse, the word niyam yate indicates that all these things, namely animal killing, intoxication, sex, should be regulated. Regulations are meant for human beings, not for animals. The traffic regulations on the street, telling people to keep to the right or the left, are meant for human beings, not for animals. If an animal violates such a law, he is never punished, but a human being is punished. The Vedas are not meant for the animals, but for the understanding of human society. A person who indiscriminately violates the rules and regulations given by the Vedas is liable to be punished. One should therefore not enjoy his senses according to his lusty desires, but should restrict himself according to the regulative principles given in the Vedas. If a king is allowed to hunt in a forest, it is not for his sense gratification. We cannot simply experiment in the art of killing. If a king, being afraid to meet rogues and thieves, kills poor animals and eats their flesh comfortably at home, he must lose his position. Ah, very good. I'm glad it says that. Because in this age, kings have such demoniac propensities. Monarchy is abolished by the laws of nature in every country. That's right. Very few kings nowadays. People have become so degraded in this age that on the one hand, they restrict polygamy. And on the other hand, they hunt for women in so many ways. So polygamy is legally having more than one wife. So the Muslims, they can have at least 4 wives legally and so forth. Many business concerns publicly advertise that topless girls are available in this club or in that shop. Thus, women have become instruments of sense enjoyment in modern history, as modern society. The Vedas enjoin, however, that if a man has the propensity to enjoy more than one wife, it is sometimes the propensity of men in the higher social order, such as the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, and even sometimes the Sudras. He is allowed to marry more than one wife. Well, that's the Muslims right there. Marriage means taking complete charge of a woman and living peacefully without debauchery. At the present moment, however, debauchery is unrestricted. And debauchery is what? It's taking advantage of others without care of any rules or regulations. Nonetheless, society makes a law that one should not marry more than one wife. This is typical of a demoniac society. Okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, nonetheless, society makes a law that one should not marry more than one wife. This is typical of a demoniac society. Well, yeah, they only have one wife, but they go around and have girlfriends on the side. Uh, so, uh, whereas Prabhupada says marriage means taking complete charge of a woman and living peacefully without debauchery, without illicit sex and other types of low class behavior. At the present moment, however, debauchery is unrestricted. So, in other words, people are getting away with very low class behavior. Nonetheless, society makes a law that one should not marry more than one wife. This is typical of a demoniac society. Well, polygamy was not forbidden in previous times. Look at the Pandavas. You know, uh, some of the Pandavas had 4 5 wives. So, and usually it's a fact that there are always going to be more women than men, and therefore to protect women, sometimes men marry more than one wife and protect them. Muslims do it legally. They can have 4 wives, except for uh, the let's call them more advanced Muslims. Sometimes they have 8 wives. Right? So one time, someone asked a Muslim man who had 8 wives. He said, "How come you have 8 wives? You're only supposed to have 4." He said, "I'll tell you tomorrow." So the next day, uh, the man who asked the question asked the Muslim man, "So what's the answer?" He said, "Well, yeah, yesterday I prayed to Allah, and He said normally you should only have 4 wives, but for me, He's giving me the chance to have 8 wives." He had a lot of nonsense going on. Okay, Narada Muni continued to speak to King Parsena Bodhisattva.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Can I ask the question, Maharaj?
Yes, please.
Maharaj, why are there more women than men, Maharaj? You said in general there are more women than men. Is it for creation?
Well, there's war where a lot more men are killed than women. You know, that's one way. There is the weakness of men who engage in having too much sex, and therefore more women are born than men. So those are 2 ways why there are more women than men. There may be other ways also. Okay, so
is that why the Vedas allow someone to have multiple wives, Maharaj?
What's that?
Is that why because in the Vedas, I think one of the statements that they allow in some conditions?
Well, it's not nice that women can not be married and have children. So, in order to protect women, a certain man who's serious will take more than one wife, usually up to 4 wives, and protect them. Yeah. Okay, so Canto 4, chapter 26, verse number 7. Narada Muni continued to speak to King Parsena Bodhisattva. My dear king, any person who works according, oh, well, let me tell you one funny thing. There was one devotee who had 2 wives, and he would come to the temple holding hands with both wives. And one day he came with no wife, but his 2 wives came holding hands. They became lesbians and threw him out of the house. So best thing is just to be satisfied with one wife. Otherwise all kinds of crazy things happen. And that's a true story. That's not, I didn't make that up.
There are few other reasons.
Mm.
Mataji's question about. So there is female longevity. So generally, female women live longer than men, it seems. So that's another reason. Then male infant mortality. So generally, the
What?
male infants are biologically more vulnerable.
Mean babies?
Yeah,
Okay.
apparently. So actually, there are 105 boys are born for 100 girls on average. But then it accounts for it's like nature's way of balancing somewhat. So that's natural sex ratio at birth is about 105 boys for every 100 girls. But then because of this higher male mortality, so it balances out somewhat. It in fact goes down. And then the other things like we talked about war, as Maharaj said. Then there is riskier male behavior.
All right.
So that leads to more deaths among males, more mortality. Then, yeah, I think those are some of the main things.
Oh, there's war.
Yeah, there's war. War and conflict leads to imbalance.
Yeah.
Based on the statistics, it looks like men needs to be protected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're protected by good wives.
But Maharaj, one more question, Maharaj. You said, according to the Vedas, if kings are allowed to
Have more than one wife?
no, just kill some animals.
Oh,
And are they only supposed to eat the flesh of the animals that they killed? Because it does talk about eating flesh.
I think it also mentioned
the Pandavas did kill animals. I'm not sure if all of them did, but they were definitely killing some animals. That was the practice for war. They had the right to kill dangerous animals, let's say like tigers and things.
yeah, not the soft animals.
Not a rabbit.
It said, right, ferocious animals.
Yeah.
But can they eat the meat of those ferocious animals that they killed?
I don't know.
Because the verse translation, it said if a king is too attracted to eating flesh.
Okay.
So then it says about killing animals, but it doesn't tell it. It starts off with the.
Well, amongst the Pandavas, Bhima was eating flesh because he married a Rakshasi. She was giving him flesh, but the other Pandavas did not eat flesh. Yeah, it was only Bhima. That's because he married a Rakshasi. She probably would have killed him if he didn't accept her flesh, her cooking. Okay. So what was your question again?
The question is if are kings only allowed to eat flesh of the animals that they killed in, themselves? Or can they eat any flesh according to the Vedas?
Who?
Kings.
Well, I'm not sure.
Mm.
I don't know. Nowadays, all kinds of people are eating flesh, right? The kings and the dacoits, everybody eating flesh. But amongst the Pandavas, only Bhima ate flesh, and that's because he married a Rakshasi. But the other Pandavas didn't eat flesh. So that should be our, let's say, understanding.
Mm.
There's only three reasons the kings were allowed to hunt themselves. Number one is training for war.
Yeah.
So that's their way to develop the skill to really fight in a ferocious war. Then protection of citizens. If some animals come and attack citizens like
Yeah.
Lord Rama protected some of the demons and the people from the demons, like that, in this case. And then there is an occasional sacrificial purposes, very only bona fide.
Yeah, but those animals that they killed, they brought back alive.
Yeah.
They were not allowed to kill unless they could bring the animal back alive.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely not for sensual
But it's
pleasure.
forbidden now in Kali Yuga. Animal sacrifice is forbidden in this period.
Yeah. Basically, whatever the killing they were allowed, it was dharmic. Means it's not for sense pleasure. It's really to protect the citizens or to prepare them again, which is war, which is protection of the citizens.
Usually, hunters are considered to be demons today. They go out with these big guns and they kill little rabbits, scare the heck out of a rabbit and kill it. It's terrible.
Yeah, so I think to your point, Mataji, in Manusmriti, it seems eating meat without the proper dharmic way of killing is sinful.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so now we're hearing text 7, right? Narada Muni continued to speak to King Prarsena Bodhisattva. My dear king, any person who works according to the directions of the Vedic scriptures does not become involved in fruitive activities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Just as a government may issue trade licenses in order for its citizens to act in a certain way, the Vedas contain injunctions that restrain and regulate all our fruitive activities. All living entities have come into this material world to enjoy themselves. Consequently, the Vedas are given to regulate sense enjoyment. One who enjoys his senses under the Vedic regulative principles does not become entangled in the actions and reactions of his activities. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yajnartat Karmana, one should act only for the performance of yajna or to satisfy Lord Vishnu. Anyatra loko yam karma bandhana. Otherwise, any action will produce a reaction by which the living entity will be bound. Okay, so that's very good to know. Yajna tat karmana. One should act only for the performance of yajna or to satisfy Lord Vishnu. Anyatra loko yam karma bandhana. Otherwise, any action will produce a reaction by which the living entity will be bound. So one who enjoys senses under the Vedic regulative principles does not become entangled in the actions and reactions of his activities. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.9, Yajnaratat Karmana, one should act only for the performance of yajna or to satisfy Lord Vishnu. Anyatra lokayam karma bandhana. Otherwise, any action will produce a reaction by which the living entity will be bound. Okay, so we should only engage in spiritual activities and not go outside of that, let's say, regulative principle. A human being is especially meant to attain liberation from the bondage of birth, death, old age, and disease. He is therefore directed by the Vedic regulative principles to work in such a way that he may fulfill his desires for sense gratification and at the same time gradually become freed from material bondage. Action according to such principles is called knowledge. Indeed, the word Veda means knowledge. The words Yanena na salipyate indicate that by following the Vedic principles, one does not become involved in the actions and reactions of his fruitive activities. Everyone is therefore advised to act in terms of the Vedic injunctions and not irresponsibly. When a person within a state acts according to the laws and licenses of the government, he does not become involved in criminal activities. Man-made laws, however, are always defective because they are made by men who are prone to committing mistakes. Being illusions, cheating, and having imperfect senses. Vedic instructions are different because they do not have these four defects. Vedic instructions are not subject to mistakes. The knowledge of the Vedas is received directly from God, and there is consequently no question of illusion, cheating, mistakes, or imperfect senses. All Vedic knowledge is perfect because it is received directly from God by the parampara disciplic succession. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1, it is said, Tede Brahma Hidaya Adikavaye, the original creator of this universe, known as Adikavi, or Lord Brahma, was instructed by Krishna through the heart. After receiving these Vedic instructions from Lord Krishna himself, Brahma distributed the knowledge by parampara system to Narada, and Narada in turn distributed the knowledge to Vyasa. In this way, Vedic knowledge is perfect. If we act according to Vedic knowledge, there is no question of being involved in sinful activities. Well, in society, there's always going to be some people who don't want to follow the regulative principles. And and therefore, it's very difficult in this age of Kali Yuga to have a spiritual life. However, if we strictly follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, and always chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we can avoid all the different pitfalls and, let's say, ignorance of people performing all kinds of unholy acts today. So today there are many, many men and women that go out and hunt and kill animals. There are so many men and women engaged in illicit sexual activities. There are so many cheaters and liars that cheat people out of money. There are also so many murderers that kill people. So it's very dangerous because people don't follow any regulative principles of Krishna consciousness. However, the people that do follow the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness are protected by the mercy of Krishna. That's why we don't see so many horrible things happening to devotees, because they're protected by the mercy of Krishna. Kontya pratijanihi name bhakta parasati. Declared boldly Arjuna that my devotee will never perish. So we should take that statement very seriously and know that if we follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, Krishna is promising to protect us. If we don't, then we're under the laws of karma. And that is very dangerous. But if we're under the protection of Krishna, that means that it's a good chance that we will not encounter horrible situations. Even if there are horrible situations, we will come out without being, let's say, seriously hurt. Okay, text number 8. Yes.
So in this verse, I was trying to contemplate on the directions of the Vedic scriptures does not become involved in fruitive activities. And I was thinking about Traigunya Vishaya Veda. The Vedas deal with the also sense gratification.
Yeah.
So then if we want to combine both statements, is this the right understanding, Guru Maharaj? You still get sense gratification, but you don't get involved, you don't get entangled in the sense gratification. Is that a true statement, Guru Maharaj, with these two, with this verse and the verse from the
Well,
Gita?
let's look at what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada did not encourage us to be engaged in sense gratification.
Yeah.
Zero, as far as Prabhupada was concerned.
Okay.
So that's what we should follow.
Okay.
We shouldn't follow all the other loopholes that might be there.
No, yeah.
We are followers of Srila Prabhupada, right? And Vaishnavism. So, yeah, maybe there are more, let's say, more types of rules and regulations that permit so many things, but we have an absolute, what you would call clear instruction by the Vaishnava acharyas of how to live. So we should follow that. We shouldn't follow these others.
Things with the disclaimers.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, someone might say, well, so-and-so is doing this. Oh, who cares so-and-so is doing this? We have to follow what Prabhupada taught us to do. Right? Okay. So text number 8. Otherwise, a person who acts whimsically falls down. Whimsically means not paying attention to the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. Due to false prestige, thus he becomes involved in the laws of nature, which are composed of the 3 qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. In this way, a living entity becomes devoid of his real intelligence and becomes perpetually, wow, perpetually, that means forever, lost in the cycle of birth and death. Thus he goes up and down from a microbe in stool to a high position in Brahmaloka planet. We should take this seriously, right? We get stuck in this merry-go-round, or actually this illusion of going up and down in the material worlds and never being liberated. Purport. There are many important words in this verse. The first is anyata, otherwise, which indicates one who does not care for the Vedic rules and regulations. The rules and regulations laid down in the Vedas are called Shastra Vidhi. Bhagavad Gita clearly states that one who does not accept the Shastra Vidhi, or rules and regulations mentioned in the Vedic scriptures, and acts whimsically or puffed up with false pride, never attains perfection in this life, nor does he attain happiness or liberation from the material condition. Ya shastravidim utrija vartate kamakarata, na sasidim avapnoti, na sukham, na param gatim. He who discards spiritual injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. Bhagavad Gita 16:23. Thus, one who is deliberately transgressing the rules and regulations of Shastras is simply involving himself more and more in material existence in the three modes of material nature. Thus, one who is deliberately transgressing the rules and regulations of the Shastras is simply involving himself more and more in material existence in the three modes of material nature. Human society should therefore follow the Vedic principles of life, which are summarized in Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, life in material existence will continue. Foolish persons do not know that the soul is passing through 8,400,000 species of life by the gradual process of evolution. When one comes to the human form of life, he is supposed to follow the rules and regulations laid down in the Vedas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that the living entity, since time immemorial, is suffering the threefold miseries of material nature due to his demoniac attitude, which is his spirit of revolt against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna also confirms this in Bhagavad Gita 15.7. Mamaivam sa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manak sastan indriyani prakritistani karsati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Every living entity is part and parcel of God. There is no reason for the living entities being put into the miserable threefold condition of material existence. But he voluntarily accepts material existence on the false pretext of becoming an enjoyer. To save him from this horrible condition, the Lord has given all the Vedic literatures in his incarnation of Vyasadeva. It is therefore said, Krishna Bhuli Se Jiva Anadi Bahirmukha Ateva Mayatare Deha Samsara Dukkha. By forgetting Krishna, The living entity has become materialistic since time immemorial. Therefore, the illusory energy of Krishna is giving him different types of miseries in material existence. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 20.117. Maya Mukta Jivera Nahi Swata Krishna Jana Jivere Kripaya Kaila Krishna Veda Purana. When a living entity is enchanted by the external energy, he cannot revive his original Krishna consciousness independently. Due to such circumstances, Krishna has kindly given him the Vedic literatures, such as the 4 Vedas and 18 Puranas. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 20:122. Every human being should therefore take advantage of the Vedic instructions. Otherwise, one will be bound by his whimsical activities and will be without any guide. The word manarudha is also very significant in this verse. Under the pretext of becoming great philosophers and scientists, men throughout the whole world are working on the mental platform. Such men are generally non-devotees due to not caring for the instructions given by the Lord to the first living creature, Lord Brahma. The Bhagavatam 5:18-12 therefore says, Harava Bhaktasya Kuto Mahadguna Manoratina Sati Dhavato Bayi. A person who is a non-devotee has no good qualities because he acts on a mental platform. One who acts on a mental platform has to change his standard of knowledge periodically. We consequently see that one philosopher may disagree with another philosopher, and one scientist may put forward a theory contradicting the theory of another scientist. All of this is due to their working on the mental platform without a standard of knowledge. Okay, what is the real standard of knowledge? That is Krishna consciousness. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are all the servants of Krishna. And Krishna gives us the rules and regulations for spiritual life. If we ignore all of this, we become sinful persons and we have to unnecessarily suffer birth, death, old age, and disease repeatedly over and over again. In the Vedic instructions, however, the standard of knowledge is accepted, even though it may sometimes appear that the statements are contradictory. Because the Vedas are the standard of knowledge, even though they may appear contradictory. Okay, it's twice he said this. They should be accepted. If one does not accept them, he will be bound by material conditions. So when it says contradictory, why is he saying, and he says it twice? Well, yeah, there are certain parts of the Vedas that seem to be contradictory. Like, for example, some people are given the ability to hunt and kill animals. On the one side, we should never kill animals. On the other side, there are some people that are given the, let's say, latitude to kill animals. So this seems to be contradictory, right? The material conditions are described in this verse as guna pravaha, the flowing of the 3 modes of material nature. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur therefore says in a song Miche Mayaravase Yatsha Bese Kacha Habadu Bubai. Why are you suffering? Why are you sometimes being drowned in the waves of material nature and sometimes coming to the surface? Jiva Krishna Dasa E Viswasa Karlita Arabdukanai. Please, therefore, accept yourself as the servant of Krishna. Then you will be freed from all miseries. As soon as one surrenders to the Lord, to Krishna, and accepts the perfect standard of knowledge, which is Bhagavad Gita as it is, he then comes out of the material modes of nature and does not fall down and lose his knowledge. Well, that shows how important the Bhagavad Gita is. It is the oldest book in the history of the world. It was originally spoken by Krishna to his devotee. No, it was originally spoken by Krishna to the sun god. And the sun god eventually spoke it to so many other people. So Bhagavad Gita is the oldest book in the history of the world. 5,000 years ago, Bhagavad Gita was spoken in the last time from Krishna to Arjuna. So there's no book as old as the Bhagavad Gita. However, there are so many, let's say, false Bhagavad Gitas that are on the market. And even Gandhi, he wrote a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita saying that it was all about nonviolence. Now, how can you say that? The whole Bhagavad Gita is about violence, but bona fide violence. Right? The whole Bhagavad Gita is talking about violence, right? And here Gandhi comes and says it's all about nonviolence. So this type of jugglery is going on all the time, especially in colleges. College education is probably the most what you would call misleading and bogus knowledge. Therefore, it's better not to go to college. But first of all, you're going to spend a lot of money, and you're going to spend a lot of time. And then once you get out of college, you realize you didn't really learn anything. And then you have to be trained to do some type of work. I know after I graduated from college, I realized I didn't know anything. That I learned a lot of things, but I didn't really know anything, especially how to live this life. So I had to join Krishna consciousness to learn how to live this life. And so that's going to be basically the same thing for all kids that go to college. After they graduate, they get their degrees, they realize they didn't really learn anything of real substance, how to liberate themselves from the cycle of birth and death. That should be taught in college, but they don't teach that. Whatever they teach keeps us more entrenched in sex life and speculation, etc. So therefore, all the knowledge that we get in college is actually misleading. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, we covered a lot of different points. Any questions or comments that you would like to make?
Guru Maharaj, okay.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I wanted to ask, so how to like Bhagavad Gita says, we should not be lamenting about the past and we should not be hankering for the future. But even though we tried different times in the day, the mind takes us to the past. And present is Krishna and future is also Krishna. So, what is the secret sauce to not go back in the past? Or don't worry about the future and just think of Krishna?
Well, it depends what you did in the past. If in the past you were Krishna conscious, there's nothing wrong with thinking about the past. But if the past was full of sense gratification and misery, then yeah, you don't want to dwell on all that nonsense. But if you learn from your suffering and don't make the same mistakes in the present time, well, you have become educated. But if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, well, that is very, very sad. So you can learn from the past. You can learn from your mistakes and not make them again. That's bona fide. But if you make the same mistakes over and over again, that is very, very, let's say, unholy and a horrible situation. So we should learn from also vicariously by the experience of others also. Like just like you see a person robs a bank and then is caught and then is put in jail. Well, we should learn from that person that we shouldn't try and steal money from a bank. We shouldn't engage in illicit activities. We should always be engaged in Krishna conscious activities. As soon as we deviate from Krishna conscious activities, we'll get into trouble. So we can learn that simply by seeing the experience of other people. We don't have to personally make all those mistakes. We can learn vicariously, which means you learn by the experience through seeing the experience of others. So that's why when we read the Shastras, as we are, we're learning about people who make a lot of mistakes and who have to suffer because of those mistakes, or people who have made many mistakes, but they have rehabilitated themselves by taking good advice from genuine devotees. So that's why there is Shastra, because Shastras will give us both sides of the life. What happens to you when you engage in illicit life, illicit activities, and what happens to you when you get engaged in Krishna conscious activities? You don't have to actually do those things. And what I mean is, you don't have to actually engage in illicit activities. You can read Bhagavatam and understand what happens to people that engage in illicit activities and learn not to do them. It's much better than saying, well, I want to experience it myself. That's not a very good thing. We can learn from understanding through the Shastras what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Then we will avoid a lot of suffering. But there are people that don't want to hear this. They want to make all the mistakes themselves and learn the hard way. But usually they never learn. They keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So therefore, we should strictly follow Krishna consciousness and always thank Srila Prabhupada for having taken so much endeavor to give us Shastric evidences such as Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, to guide us through all situations of life. Okay.
So, Guru Maharaj, follow-up question. There are 6 angas of Sharanagati as per Atmanikshepa verse. So, the one is that reject everything which is not Krishna consciousness. And there are some strong material attachments. You're connected to your family, you're connected to your country, and we have been doing Krishna consciousness, detaching those sphere knots of attachments. So, so how do we focus without focusing? How do we focus on our real goal and not focusing on, not binded by these attachments and rejecting everything which is not Krishna consciousness?
Okay, well, the solution to that is always associate with genuine devotees. Then you will not be misled. Hearing their lectures, associating with them, taking prasadam with them, and learning from more advanced devotees the happiness of always being engaged in Krishna consciousness. It's happiness. It's avoiding unnecessary problems. It's avoiding making so many different mistakes. So, therefore, the association of devotees is the panacea, or the, let's say, the healing medicine that will help you avoid making many mistakes. In the association of devotees, you will be corrected if they see that you're making mistakes. When you're corrected, you avoid making mistakes. You're on the verge of making mistakes, but you're corrected, and therefore you will not, even if you made a mistake, you will not make it a second time. The problem is that many people will make mistakes and they'll continue making the same mistakes throughout life because they don't know how to control their mind and their senses. And that's very dangerous. So, association with genuine devotees and regularly chanting Hare Krishna in their company, and always coming to classes and asking questions and hearing the answers, and chanting 16 good rounds every day. All these things are necessary to keep us on the 2 rails, going back to Godhead. We don't want to be derailed. We want to stay on the 2 rails, going back to Godhead. What are those 2 rails? Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. If you follow those 2 books, you'll be on the railway back to Godhead. So you don't have to read any other books. If you never read any other book, but only Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, you're not missing anything. You're having a full education. All right. Yeah, you put your kids in the school. Let's say they're in 2nd grade, and they come home with the recommended reading of a story about a monkey. What do they learn from that story about a monkey? 0. They don't learn anything. So, putting your child in a normal school today is like child abuse, because most of the things they learn is completely nonsense. So we have to be very, very involved in the education of our children. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Hi, Krishna Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. I have a question.
Yes.
There is a saying that bad things happen to good people. How can you relate that to Krishna consciousness?
Well, bad things don't happen to good people. That's a saying that, bad things happen to good people. But actually, if you're really a good person, bad things won't happen to you. And if they do, you can tolerate it and take complete shelter of Krishna. So let's not, bad things happen to good people. That's a mundane statement. It's not Shastric. Shastric is Konteya Pratijanahi Name Bhakta Pranasiti. Declared boldly, Arjuna, that my devotee will never perish. Well, that is what we should meditate on. Krishna's absolute promise that he would protect his devotee who is following the regulative principles. Yes.
Maharaj, when he say, my devotee will never perish.
Yeah.
Perish doesn't mean that he will never die. It just means they will always be protected.
Yes. Yes. But actually, they'll never die. Life after life, they'll be engaged in Krishna consciousness. So that's not really dying. Yeah. Really dying would be, you would be completely eliminated. But no, you have life after life. And if every life you have, you're engaged in Krishna consciousness, then you're not in any way, let's say, punished, you know. But if in every life you engage, you make the same mistakes, then you're going to be punished. So there's nothing wrong with life after life, as long as you're in Krishna consciousness. We never really die anyway. We have an eternal soul. But we can eternally make the same mistakes. But if we stop making those mistakes, then we're actually living properly life after life. Okay. Well, let me see if there's a takeaway today. We covered so many things. Yes. Harava Bhaktasya Kuto Mahadguna Manoratinasati Tahavato Bai. A person who is a non-devotee has no good qualifications because he or she acts on the mental platform. One who acts on the mental platform has to change his standard of knowledge periodically. We consequently see that one philosopher may disagree with another philosopher, and one scientist may put forward a theory contradicting the theory of another scientist. All of this is due to their working on the mental platform without a standard of knowledge. What's the standard of knowledge for a devotee? Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's our standard of knowledge. In the Vedic instructions, however, the standard of knowledge is accepted even though it may sometimes appear that the statements are contradictory. Because the Vedas are the standard of knowledge, even though they may appear contradictory, they should be accepted. If one does not accept them, he will be bound by the material conditions. The material conditions are described in this verse as guna pravaha, the flowing of the three modes of material nature. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur therefore says in a song, Miche Maya Ravase Yacha Bese Kacha Habadubudabai. Why are you suffering? Why are you sometimes being drowned in the waves of material nature and sometimes coming to the surface? Jiva Krishna Dasa E Viswasakarlita Aradithanai. Please, therefore, accept yourself as the servant of Krishna. Then you will be freed from all miseries. Okay, that's it. We should all become the servants of Krishna, and then we'll be free of all sufferings. As soon as one surrenders to Krishna and accepts the perfect standard of knowledge, which is Bhagavad Gita as it is, he then comes out of the material modes of nature and does not fall down and lose his knowledge. This is our takeaway today. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You should meditate on this today. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in a song, Miche Mayara Vasev Yatsha Besich Kacha Habu Dububai. Why are you suffering? Why are you sometimes being drowned in the waves of material nature and sometimes coming to the surface? Jiva Krishna Dasa E Vishwasa Karlita Ara Dukanai. Please, therefore, accept yourself as the servant of Krishna. Then you will be freed from all. Then you will be freed from all miseries. Okay, there's a solution. If we surrender to Krishna, then we become free of all suffering. And we will not be drowned in the waves of material nature, sometimes coming up to the surface and sometimes going down. Jiva Krishna Dasa E Vishwasa Karlita Ara Ugadai. Please, therefore, accept yourself as the servant of Krishna. Then you will be freed from all miseries. This is our takeaway for today. You should meditate on this all day. In fact, you might want to write this down and look at it over and over again today. That is, accept yourself as the servant of Krishna. Then you will be freed from all miseries. Haribol. As soon as one surrenders to Krishna and accepts the perfect standard of knowledge, which is Bhagavad Gita, as it is, he then comes out of the material modes of nature and does not fall down and lose his knowledge. Haribol. So it doesn't say, go to Harvard or other universities to get an education. You get the education by becoming the servant of Krishna and engaging in the service of Krishna. That's the way you get an education. You don't get the education by going to a university. The universities today are all teaching people how to become Sudras. By the way, when you are taught in schools to get a job, well, immediately when you work for someone else, you're a Sudra. Even if you're the CEO of a company, you're still a Sudra. So we should not think that that's an advancement in life. The real advancement in life is to be a genuine devotee and give up all sense gratification and live a Krishna conscious life full of love and devotion for Krishna. Then you're not a Sudra. But if you work for someone else who's a Vishayi, sense gratification, a sense gratifier, then you're a Sudra. And you have to be very careful because you will be influenced by such a, let's say, master. Okay, well, thank you very much, my dear devotees. Don't work for anyone else but Krishna. Then you will not be a Sudra. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna mantra ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam